Bobby had mentioned that Gwen absolutely loved to run, and that was one thing he noticed about her. Kevin, did you feel that way the first time that you started working on it, or did it take you a while to really enjoy running?
I always enjoyed running. It's just that I wasn't good at it, and I mean, it hurt a lot. And I mean, this was in the very beginning, but I had a lot of friends back at the University of Florida that I would run with all the time, so it was always very enjoyable. But it took, like I said, 3 or 4 years before I really, started to feel like I was a good runner, and that was 2009, and it's progressed since then even further. So.
Okay. So there's hope for the rest of us?
There's always hope, yeah, especially when you're working with Bobby.
Okay. Bobby, tell us what it's been like working with Kevin over these last couple of years.
Well, with Kevin, there was a lot more that I could get my teeth into, so it was a whole lot of fun. The first thing that I realized is that Kevin had a very, very low fatigue index, but he was not a very explosive individual to start with. So we suspected pretty early on that the longer the distance, the more he would come into his own. But one of the things that changed dramatically, and we worked on very hard, is when Kevin used to strike the ground, his floating hip of his non-stance leg used to drop quite dramatically. And through the application of the drills, not only did Kevin develop some tremendous junk in his trunk and have the glute muscles that you need to be an effective runner, like he was running in 2009 and now. And he learned to actually proactively get that opposite foot down so that his right hip, if he was going to put his right hip on the ground, that his right hip was actually down, so that when he went through mid-stance, his pelvis was square, instead of that characteristic drop on the opposite side. And so I use him to this day in my presentations when I teach running mechanics. And I think it's in the Run Transformation course as well, that series of slides where Kevin is running in the World Championships and he's transitioning, and it's just absolutely bulletproof. And then the other thing with Kevin is that he responds very quickly to athletic type training. As soon as we had him on the bike or on the run doing some explosive stuff, it just improved everything throughout. And if you think of that model that we can improve our endurance until we are age 40, but we start losing power and athleticism, in our mid-20s. He was a prime example of that. As soon as we started working on those areas, he absolutely blossomed as a runner, and now, if he's 2-3 minutes back getting off the bike into 70.3, there's a lot of very worried people because they know that's not a lot of real estate for him to make up.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you so much. Kevin, what kind of improvement have you seen in your half marathon time in your half iron course racing?
Well, I haven't been racing long enough to really see much of an improvement. I just kind of got into it in late 2012. I mean, I guess at first I was running maybe 115s, and I've seen some 112s now. But
Sure.
It's kind of the strength. There's been a lot of really hard courses I've raced on this year, and that's sort of been my strength is the really hilly kind of mountainous courses almost. So you don't really get the fastest times, but you might have one of the fastest runs of the day.
Yeah, and then when you were doing the short course, you saw some significant drops in your time in the 10K portion. Is that correct?
Yeah, from when I started in 2006 until I stopped racing short course. Well, not fully, but in 2012, I'd say I took 5 to 6 minutes off my 10K time. So
wow, that's
that was
great.
where, yeah.
Yeah, and then Kevin, one question I have for you is you had mentioned that in working with your coach, you have a separate coach that you were using back when you first met Bobby, and you were incorporating the work she was doing with you with the things that you'd learned from Bobby. Can you talk about how someone who's listening in might mix those things together? Maybe they have a coach or they're working from a training plan, but they're interested in learning from some of Bobby's videos. How can they integrate that? What did you do to integrate two different coaches' advice?
Well, I think the biggest thing is to have my coach, Jennifer Hutchison, on board with what Bobby's doing. And she has gone through all the USA Triathlon coaching clinics, and Bobby teaches at those. He's one of the contributors. So, I mean, when I said, I met Bobby at this collegiate camp, and he wants to incorporate this and this, it was something she already knew about and was able to sort of remind me in my training through Training Peaks. And then, it all just kind of came together, and I was able to work on it every day. So that's the biggest thing is I think having your coach, you need to be on board, and your coach needs to be on board. And I mean, with what Bobby's teaching.
And so your coach kept you accountable to some of those things.
Yeah, it was always kind of form-focused runs, and after 10 minutes of running, you do Bobby McGee drills, and over the years, I mean, I couldn't do the drills at first, but I've gotten better. So
great.